Hello and welcome to the channel. Alright, for this next video here, we are going to discuss on setting up timer blocks or setting up a 5-minute close all doors option, as we did in our video yesterday. Basically, this is going to be kind of your introduction to timer blocks and how they work. So as you can see, we have our hanger here set up, and this is what we're going to operate in, just as we had it yesterday. So we're going to go up here to our timer blocks. You'll need 2 for this. Go ahead and open it up here. Now this one here I named as timer kickoff. That is basically the timer that's actually going to close the doors, and then it's going to be the one that starts the timer for every 5 minutes. Sorry, I had to cough there for a moment. So this is basically your key timer that does most everything other than keep track of the time. And what we see here on the interface, of course, is you have your typical block on off and show on HUD. And then we have delay. Delay goes from 1 second up to 1 hour. Now, if you wanted to set it for like 15 minutes, you could also use control and then left click on the actual slider and type in 900, which is 900 seconds, because the manual enter time is only in seconds. Even if you change the format, you can't type it in minutes or hours. I've actually tried that earlier. That says the 15 minutes there. So of course we want it to be 0, or rather 1, since our limit is 1. We will set this one back to 1 here. Now next you'll see setup actions. This is all the actions that you're going to do. On this screen you'll see there are 1 through 9 on your regular action key here, and then you have your tabs basically that are 1 through 0. So you have a total of 10 tabs and 9 actions per tab. That gives you a total of 90 actions you can issue. Now each slot is only one action, be it for a group of items or for a individual item. It is still going to take the same slot. And of course, having 90 slots, you're pretty much good to go on most anything, unless you're making something gigantic that really shouldn't be using a timer block, because then you're going to just bog the system down. Anyways, so we set it up. Say we want to take this turret here, set it up here, and tell it to shoot on, so it just constantly fires. We take the same turret and we set it up next to it, and we tell it to shoot off so that it stops firing. That means when it gets to this number 4 slot, what will happen after the timer counts down, it'll go in sequence. It'll activate 1, activate 2, activate 3, 4, and 5. Now, it used to be that the timer would recount itself in between each action. That is no longer the case. Now what it does is it just activates them all in sequence, and then that's the end. The timer block is done. So what this will do is it'll activate the shooting, and then it'll stop the shooting. So basically you're only going to get like 1 round off at that point. Now you notice you get a large range of options depending on what items you put on here. So flight controls, we only have toggle on off for different commands here. And doors, of course, will have toggle it on off, turn it on, turn it off, open, close, and so on, as you can see there. So basically you have a large range of different commands you can issue per block depending on the actual block's design. Close that out. So there's a number of different things you can do, and a lot of people like to make their first quote-unquote automated mining craft and stuff like that. Fighter drones, defensive turrets that are not actual turret models but player-made turrets with timer blocks and sensors, because they work well together, and it is completely mechanical in that regards. So it's a really neat concept to get into, and hopefully we'll be able to cover that in a later video, but right now we're trying to keep it very basic. I'll go ahead and actually clear these out so you can see me put these back in. So this is our kickoff block where we're going to do our doors. We went ahead and grouped our doors and everything together. So we're going to go ahead and right click on each one, tell it to close. Now alternatively, you can drag them down as you saw earlier and tell it to close. That lets you say if you wanted to put this back in this slot, put it there rather than right in the first slot, of course. Right clicking on it again, you can select change the option for that group or individual block, or remove it from the toolbar. Okay. Now, doing the piston doors with a closing script, that's going to require sensors to make sure that it is, in fact, in a closed position. So we're going to leave those off for now, because we're going to need to save that for another later video. Alright, so what you see here is we've got our 3 groupings of doors set up. That means if we go ahead and close out of all this, and we go and open these suckers up, so all of them are opening up, and then we come back, and we start that sucker. It's going to close all 3 sets of doors. And that's what it's set up to. So, if you don't want to have to make another group and crowd it that way, you can just use a timer block just for that on its own. It's a neat little function for it, but it's kind of a waste of materials. So, we need a timer to get this set to close it every 5 minutes. And that's where our second block comes in. So you see we have timer block 2 here. We'll go ahead and rename that. Into our loop back, and we will set it to 5 minutes, 300 seconds there, and its only action, and this is where the developers got really ingenious by just allowing this very simple feature here. We take our kickoff timer block here, and we tell it to start. That's the only action this block needs. Now, the differences between trigger now and start is that trigger now skips the actual time, and it just goes straight into executing those actions. Start obviously starts the countdown, and stop will stop the countdown, and when you start it again, it'll pick up from the beginning of the countdown rather than where you left off. So, now we've got this sucker here, so we start him. See, nothing is happening, so we'll go ahead and open the doors because we only set it to close. So all our doors are opening. And you'll see these lights flash every second, indicating the timer is counting down. So he's still counting down. He's about 4 minutes, 30 seconds. So we'll tell it to stop. We'll just trigger now. And that triggered that one there. You saw it just flashed once for its 1 second delay. And all our doors are closing. So, now we know we've got that set up working properly. Should have opened up the other one, because we're done with the loop back. We've already set him up fine. So we go back to our kickoff block here. And the last action, which will be our 4 slot here, we can put it anywhere really. We could skip all of these and go over to tab 0 and put it on the end of that, and it would still do it. Basically, we just take our loop back, and we tell it to start. So what that does is we come back over here, and we trigger now. So that triggers it, and you see loop back is counting down. So we will go ahead and open these up. He's going to count down. Now we're going to go ahead and start setting up our next bit here. Put a third timer block in. Now let me go ahead and go over that while we're waiting on the 5-minute countdown to show that it does in fact all work. Basically what this next setup is going to be, it's going to be setting it up so that when you go to open the door, we're going to pick the hallway door here for this one. That it takes the time to depressurize the room, sucks all the O2 and everything back in, and puts it in the storage tank, so that you can open up a door that is to a depressurized area without losing your vital O2. That, of course, you're going to have to manage as a resource. I have not heard yet any consistent reports as to how often you run into ice out there to mine up, so let's assume it's a scarce enough resource that you need to be concerned about it. Alright, let's see how far this timer's gone. 3 minutes. Okay, so we'll go ahead and start setting this up. By the time we're out of this, it'll already start up. So, this is going to be a simple setup here. We're going to go to Setup Actions. We're going to find our event. Where are you? Probably further back up. Probably already passed it. Yep. First item. Alphabetical order. Pressurization on. And you know what? We're actually going to need more than one timer block. I'm kind of doing this one on the fly, so bear with me here. Alright, so that one timer block, we're going to set it at depressurization. We need to give it a few seconds to gather all the atmo. This timer block will be next on the trigger, so that's going to be our delay one up there. And that will actually open up the doors. So, we will rename you. Get that action set up there. And we'll set you up there. Alright, so let's go ahead and rename it. And yeah, 10 seconds should be good for that. We'll go to our groups, find our hallway hanger set, tell it to open. So what that should do is the depressurization one will execute the command to, well, of course, depressurize the room. Then it'll tell it to start the timer on the next timer block. And that, once the timer is done, will open up the door. So that's more of a one-way thing, and we will set this up over here, which to execute this action on a button panel, we are just going to tell it to, well, the time doesn't matter since it's a 1 second timer. We'll tell it to trigger now. We don't want it on that slot. We want you over here. So, this little sucker's been counting down. Got another minute to kill there. So, basically, like I said, what we have is it'll take the 10 seconds to depressurize the room, which should be, spitballing here, should be about enough time for this size room. And then it will go ahead and start opening up these doors to the unpressurized remainder of the station. Now, I could just trigger now on this, but we really want to just let the timer run through because you always want to give that one final ready check, just to make sure that everything is set up properly. And this will just keep looping back and back and back. So bear with me another 20 seconds here, and we'll make sure all those doors close. Now, you can set up the depressurization for each and every one here. What you'll probably want to do with that in a panel like this, of course, is you would just manually depressurize with one button and open the doors with the next. But let's say you wanted to well, do it all this way, because we could map it up to open up all of these doors. In fact, now that we confirm that block is working, let's go ahead and do just that. We will set it to open up all the doors, not just the one group. Okay. As you see, our timer block's gone back to counting down again after the trigger on the kickoff block. So we know this is all working fine now. So, we've got pressure. Kick off our group here. And you see all our doors are opening up nicely. So I imagine that did not depressurize fully because our O2 tank was full. We'll have to deal with that later. But basically, you get the idea. We can depressurize and trigger all the doors to open that way, and that would save your atmo. You can set up your automatic timer here to make sure all your doors close every 5 minutes. That gives you plenty of time to do whatever you're doing, moving trucks out, flying ships out. And I broke the landing gear off. Alright. That pretty much covers our introduction to timer blocks here. I hope that was helpful, and I hope you guys have some fun playing with timer blocks yourself, and as always, have a good day.